Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Grizzly Bear Sims YouTube channel, and welcome back to another Grizzly Bear Sims American Truck Simulator gameplay. And look what we've got working. Yeah, we've got Track IR working pretty cool. All right, so please bear with me, folks. If I will try my level best to make sure that the movements and stuff don't get too aren't too aren't too nauseous for you on on the videos and stuff like that, just because it has been a little while since I have used Trek IR because it has not been working very well. It hasn't been working reliably enough, and I think a lot of that, and I think I might have talked about this in a previous episode, maybe Euro Truck or ATS or whatever, as we sort of blow through that stop sign. But I think a lot of it was because I was trying to sort of switch back and forth um, between between using Track IR on Farm Sim and also using it on ATS2 and ATS. And so I've sort of, because I don't do a lot of first person driving, or at least I don't do first person driving when I'm actually doing things, just because if I'm sitting in the cab of a tractor, plowing or cultivating or seeding or whatever, you guys can't really see what's going on. And so I find that it's a lot easier for me to even drive and do other things in third person. And so that's kind of how I do things with Farm Sim. And with Truck Sim, obviously, I just simply cannot drive like this. I can't drive in third person. Maybe it has to do with the speeds. Maybe it just has to do with the fact that maybe the immersion and everything is a little bit better with ATS and ETS2 as far as the first person immersion goes. But yeah, so the issue with with the different profiles with Track IR, and I don't know if it works this way with other head tracking. There's like Track Hat, and I think there might even be something else that is out there. But anyway, some of the default keys are used in ATS and ETS2, so you have to change those. So like I've mapped buttons on my shifter, on my G27 shifter, to for like centering and stuff like that, because obviously the head tracking will get out of sync occasionally, and if I hit that button, it'll sort of snap everything back to being perfectly in sync with my head looking straight out the windshield there. So in any event, we are heading over to pick up our load. We were still at the winery from the previous episode, and at least for now, until the doubles, until the beta is out for ATS with the doubles and the triples, and I suppose I could be doing that. I could load the beta if I wanted to. I have loaded the beta a few times in, not this particular beta, but in sort of the history of my gameplay with ATS. I have played around with the betas before. I'm not planning on doing that with ETS2, just because I did spend a little bit of time, obviously getting pro mods and everything going. There's obviously a new version of pro mods, so as soon as the new update for ETS2 does actually become generally available for everybody, obviously pro mods will stop working for a period of time, and there is a new update of pro mods that's being worked on, and I have not seen any videos or anything, but I have just heard about it. Some folks were talking about that in one of my live streams, one of my single player old guy farmer single player challenge live streams not too long ago. So that is in the works. So if any of you guys took advantage and installed, I think it was 2.17 of Pro Mods, and obviously whenever the new ETS2 comes out, that will not work anymore. most likely it won't work anymore. And then there'll be a new version. So we're gonna head right over here and pick up our load, and this is basically going from Carlsbad up to Fresno, and we're hauling something from Plaster and Sons up to let's see, where are we going? Let's just, well, I think we have to wait until we get connected to our trailer first. So how are we gonna do this? Let's do it like this. Let's swing around here. These guys, it's always funny, these guys that are working on these machines, they're always like really aggressively trying to pull parts or hammer things or whatever these guys are doing, and it's kind of amusing. Alright, so we will back up here, try to back up here using our track IR. Try not to hit anything in the process. Alright, so let's set our parking brake. We will go ahead and connect to our trailer, and as I try to get myself positioned in my chair a little bit better, we're going to go ahead and pause here, and I'm going to get my screenshot for my thumbnail. Alright, and we are back, and again, I hope that hope my head tracking movements don't make you seasick, or make you truck sick, I suppose would be the correct terminology. There might be some fine tuning that I can do if it, and I'll certainly recognize it when I watch the video. I'm not sure, obviously it doesn't make me nauseous as I sit here in my cab staring at the steering wheel and the dash and all that kind of stuff, but it's altogether somewhat different with regards to what the finished video sort of looks like. So we got 341 miles to go from Carlsbad to Fresno, and of course our truck speed limits in California are most certainly a lot slower than they are in Arizona and in Nevada, but we were in Arizona in the previous episode and hauled something back to Carlsbad. I can't remember even what that load was right now, but we did that. So we'll try to keep things a bit consistent. In other words, there goes an airplane. We'll try to keep things consistent, meaning we'll try to haul from this relatively same city or general area where we made our previous drop, and then go someplace new. So hopefully, New Mexico isn't too far away from being released, because that would give us something obviously new to explore that hasn't been out and hasn't already been explored on many other videos and everything from many other YouTube content creators. But we'll just see how that goes. So we're gonna do our customary set our cruise up about 5 miles an hour over the posted speed limit. So right here in California, posted truck speed limit is 55. You guys might remember, if you're old like me or older like me, you guys might remember the campaign back in I suppose it was in the 80s, because prior to that, speed limits were up there about where they are now, about in the 70s, 75, something like that. And then there was this campaign about 55 saves lives. And of course, if you're not from the US, then you may not know what in the world I'm talking about, but I believe that was they had more or less said, and of course this was maybe also sort of in conjunction with the with all the hype around the gas shortages and all that kind of stuff that we endured. I say we. I was a kid or teenager during some of this time frame that I'm talking about now. But yeah, there was some oil shortages and all that kind of stuff, gasoline shortages in the late 70s, and I do remember the lines. Now, of course, I didn't live in a major, U.S. area, but I do remember the gas line. Of course, I remember seeing this stuff on the news as well. So it's kind of, when you think back, especially when you're thinking back to things that you may have witnessed or experienced. I am going to slow down just a little bit if we're coming into a city area. But it is sometimes hard to differentiate the difference between what you might have saw in person versus what you might have saw on the news. But I think that I do remember as a child, as a kid, probably in the 9, 10, 11 year range, late, like I said, late 70s. I do remember having to wait in line for gas and stuff like that a little bit. But anyway, 55 Saves Lives, that was a big campaign that sort of took hold in the maybe late 70s or very early 80s to drive down that speed limit. Because again, the speed limit across most parts where I grew up was probably in that 65, 70, 75 mile an hour range. And of course that's what they're back up to now. And I suppose one might ask yourself, well, what really has changed? Was it more to do about safety back in the 70s and early 80s, or was it more to do about fuel economies? And if it was, then what really changed? Are automobiles that much more safer today than they were back then? I could argue points both for and against that argument. You could say that most certainly automobiles are more safe today. They've got more safety features and that sort of stuff on the cars. But I can also argue that point and say, yes, but there's a whole heck of a lot more plastic, fiberglass, and materials that were almost unheard of as far as being on the exterior of a vehicle back in the late 70s and 80s. I mean, back then you had these things that we often refer to today, when we still see them running up and down the road, as land yachts, because they were huge. I mean, my parents had a Monte Carlo, and I occasionally will see one of those models going up and down the road, or see it parked in a parking lot someplace, and kind of a flashback of history. But I had an aunt and uncle that had like a Lincoln Continental. I mean, this thing was huge. I mean, when you see them running up and down the roads compared to the vehicles that we have today, and yeah, we have some fairly large profile vehicles like the Cadillac Escalades, the SUV kind of class vehicles and stuff like that. But anyway, were our vehicles really truly that much safer today? I don't think that it's the drivers that are safer. I think if anything at all, in this day and age, we've got a lot more danger as far as stuff distracting folks behind the wheel than we would have had back in the 70s. I mean, we didn't have smartphones back in the 70s. So, I suppose, if I'm honest, my biggest distraction from when driving when I was a teenager in the early to mid 80s was probably my radio, my car stereo, my truck stereo, or trying to find a cassette, because this is before the compact disc, and so we had the cassettes, not the 8-tracks, although I do remember 8-tracks being in my parents had a van when I was I don't know, in my teens, early teens, before I started driving. Well, actually, I learned to drive in this van, so it wouldn't be that. But anyway, that had an 8-track stereo in it. But I think as a young driver for me, I suppose I should be over here in this slow lane. But for me, as a young driver, I think that the biggest distraction was obviously the car stereo. But nowadays, the distractions are you know, cell phones, text messaging, all that kind of stuff. And so I would really have to argue the point that, you know, things are not necessarily safer. The environments are not safer. Yeah, the technologies and everything that are in the cars help make them safer. Some of the, you know, anti-skid controls and some of the other little bells and whistles and stuff like that that just don't pop into my head right now that as I'm trying to think about this stuff. By the way, these truck runaway ramps are way cool. I have not yet actually driven my truck up to one of these, but here living in Colorado, I do. We do have those along I-70 going up into the high country, and so I have seen trucks up there before. I have seen the tracks from trucks, previous trips up those ramps. But last year, I think it was, my wife and I were going up to the high country during the summertime. This was last summer, so the summer of 2016. And we witnessed a semi take one of those runaway ramps, and that was pretty impressive. I mean, it's scary, and everything. Everybody was okay and everything. The driver was certainly all right, but it was certainly scary to see that. And I'm sure that it takes some pretty sheer amount of courage to control the vehicle and everything and take those. But anyway, but I don't know. I mean, everything, you know, everything, cycles repeat themselves, and you know, almost like clothing trends and style trends and stuff like that. So, you know, even though the campaign 55 saves lives and all that stuff, and for whatever reason that was important to do, whether it truly was to save fuel, gasoline and stuff, or it was to try to slow things down to save lives, I don't know. But obviously things have crept up. Now obviously vehicles are much more the fuel economies and everything are much greater with today's vehicles, obviously. I had a 1964 Chevy stepside pickup that my father and I restored, and that thing guzzled gas back in the day. But I can also remember when gas, I could fill the tank up for you know, my pocket change almost. A $10 bill or so would fill that, will probably more than fill it up, back when I first started driving and everything. And of course the cost just kind of crept up from there. But I don't know. It's interesting to see how things have.
You want to give me a call on Steam?
Anyway, I forgot to turn the CB off, but maybe they'll keep their language and everything. I tell you what we'll do. We're gonna stop. We're gonna stop and get fuel, and that'll give me a chance to safely switch off the CB. Because we don't need fuel. We could probably most certainly make it to Fresno on the fuel that we have, but this will give me an opportunity to stop, set the parking brake, turn it off, and fuel up. And then before we get rolling again, I will turn this CB off. That way, just in case we have somebody. There we go. So turn it off, and we are back on the road. All right. The CB is a great thing. You know, obviously I could change the channel. Obviously channel 19 is going to be the most popular CB channel, just because that's sort of the calling channel or calling frequency of regular CB radio. That's where you're going to hear the most chatter and everything. So I could always change the channel, but because I don't have anyone, I'm not in convoy with anyone else, and even if I were, I'd probably use Discord like I used to use TeamSpeak. for that communication or for that interactivity. So the CB on multiplayer, Truckers MP multiplayer, can be a bit salty from time to time. There are some younger individuals that just like to hear themselves scream and try to make up the next generation of curse words and stuff. And so I don't want to subject any of my viewers to that. I take pride in how I run this channel, and you know, that in and of itself creates some troll opportunities, because folks you know, folks do, like on the live streams, I've noticed when I've been doing the live streams, obviously I've got Nightbot and some other things that's posting messages in the chat from time to time, just reminding folks that this is a rated G channel and everything, and some folks will sort of take that as their invitation to start speaking like a sailor. And of course, multiplayer again is a great thing. Truckers MP multiplayer is a great thing. I'm not trying to discourage anyone from it. I enjoy it. I enjoy driving with some of my friends that I know that enjoy this game as well. But there's just always that opportunity that you're going to get somebody that's going to start laying out a whole bunch of vocabulary that's not suitable for all audiences. And again, I really want you guys to feel comfortable, feel confident in setting your children, your grandchildren, or you know, your priest, if he's interested in farm sim or whatever, set them down and let them watch my channel, because they're not going to hear anything that's going to make them turn various shades of red and whatnot. So anyway, I know I could probably, and I've talked about this before, I know I could you know, I might even, my channel might even grow faster if I spoke like a sailor most of the time, but I don't do that in real life. So why would I be somebody that I'm not on YouTube? You know, that's the problem. And this is going to get me on a soapbox here for just a few minutes, but that's the problem with the internet and social media, is it is too easy for folks to go into their keyboard warrior kind of mentalities and basically be something that they're completely not in real life. Because a lot of these people that really challenge other individuals on the internet, whether it be Twitter, Facebook, or whatever, these people aren't like that in real life, because you know, they're not gonna walk up to somebody and start harping on them for whatever reason, but they'll do it on the internet because there's a little bit of, you know, there's an anonymous kind of level of things where, you know, you might not know exactly where this person is or whatever, and they feel that there's some safety with that. But at the same time, you know, if that's not who you are in real life, then why would you be that way on the internet? Now, you know, granted, you know, I enjoy simulation-based games. I'm not a real-life trucker. I'm not a real-life farmer. I'm not a real-life pilot. I'm not a real-life whatever. And it's fun to virtually place myself into the role of a truck driver or a farmer or whatever. I enjoy that about these games. It's not really the same though, because you know, I'm not telling you all I'm a real life trucker and I drive the open road, and you know, I have had a CDL, Class A CDL, but my gosh, I mean, that was in a past life that is more than 30 years ago. So, and I have, you know, trust me, I have, the laws have changed, everything has changed. You know, I could probably, you know, I could probably start up a truck, and I could probably manage to drive it. Probably wouldn't want to do it with a load or anything, but I could probably do those things. Like I could probably drive a tractor. I could probably remember some of that stuff. It would all come back together. As much as I love flight sim, I'm not one of those guys that's going to tell you that I could land a 737. You know, there's a lot of there's a lot of 18, 19, maybe even younger individuals that get brave behind their keyboards and talk a lot of smack about how they could land a 737 if they had to. Well, I would certainly give it my best try. Of course. I mean, if it became a situation where, life and death, I remember, some of you may remember as well, if you're an older individual like myself, the airport movies, the airport franchise, Airport 76, Airport 77. Well, there was one of them where one of the flight attendants actually had to land a 747 into Salt Lake City. And, she was talked through the process from, or I guess she was flying it actually. I think they ended up putting another pilot, or tried to put another pilot in through the blown out cockpit window, and I think that went horribly wrong. But anyway, I can't remember. It's been a while since I've seen that movie. But I'm not the type of person that will basically, brag about being able to do this stuff. I would be scared as all get out, but I would give it a try. And the type of 737, for example, that I enjoy flying in P3D is a study level version of that aircraft. And yeah, everything is much the same. The buttons, the switches, the things like that. And PMDG prides itself on having sort of the same flight dynamics and characteristics and stuff like that. And there's real world pilots that are involved. Well, the owner of PMDG is a real world pilot in and of himself. So, I mean, there's folks that determine that the flight characteristics and everything are correct, but still, at the end of the day, the best that I could do is just give it my best shot to just, survival of the fittest and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, we are coming up on our delivery spot here, and I believe that this is going to be delivered to Gallon Oil Refinery, or whatever this little establishment is. So I'm guessing that this tank, or whatever it is that we're hauling, is going to be used as an expansion or something. Expansion operation. One thing I guess that I sort of I won't use the word despise, because that's kind of a harsh word, but I don't get everybody honking at each other. I know that maybe it's just, friendly. There's only like 70 or so folks logged on at the time that I'm recording this on the multiplayer. But even when it's a little more active, everybody's honking at each other. And I drive up and down I-25 and I-70 and I-35 in Texas and everything on a regular basis, and I don't hear all these trucks honking at each other. Usually when a truck is honking, there's usually it's usually accompanied by maybe other gestures, other stuff. So we're gonna take the easy approach here. I think just because yeah, I'm just gonna take the easy approach here because I just feel like it. So I suppose we could have probably done that. It was just simply pull in there and then back up and slide it in, but that's okay. This episode is already about 30 minutes, and it would probably take me, a few minutes to do that. And I know practice makes perfect and all that stuff, and there'll be time, plenty of time for some practice and all that stuff to do. So we're going to go ahead and disconnect the job here, see how well we did. And we've got excellent, awesome stuff. I finally got around to cutting off the music and everything because I was always freaked out about getting some kind of copyright claim. So we're going to continue here. We've got 65 World of Trucks contracts completed. Go ahead and hit continue and get back in our truck, and we will, after we get our truck out, the parking brake off, we'll go ahead and pull down here just a little ways and turn this thing around. Now I've got, so my biggest challenge obviously was getting my track IR working. So I've got my track IR working. I'm going to, obviously I will check and determine if it was to sort of, if it made me nauseous when I watch the recording. If it, if it's not, if there is some need to tweak it or whatever, I will tweak it. I will try to make sure that everything is better for you guys. I can maybe slow the movement down just a little bit, and of course that's just me moving around in my chair. But in any event, I will make sure that it's a little more fluid if it needs to be. If not, then I won't mess with it. But that was sort of the first challenge. I'm going to try to mix things up and drive different trucks. I know I've used the same truck for all episodes so far, so we'll try to mix some things up. Once the doubles come out, once the new version of ATS comes out, which has the doubles and triples, I will be doing probably some single player action in that, because it will probably take a little while for those to get added to Truckers MP, because also I want to check out the updated version of the Volvo truck that has been updated. So that, I think, is kind of cool. So what we're going to do is I'm just basically going to stay here, and then we'll resume from Fresno and go someplace else in the next episode. So thank you all so much for watching. I appreciate you guys watching my videos. A little laid back, but I get an opportunity to talk to you all about different subjects and stuff, and share some stories with you all, and just sort of hang out casually, and nothing too intense and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, thank you all so much for watching. I do appreciate it, and I will see you on down the open road. Take care now, and take care of each other. Talk to you soon. God bless you all. Bye-bye.